Commissioner Eccles is absent this evening. And I guess we'll start with you, Jason.
Okay. In your packets, and that was emailed out to you this morning, Kathy did provide you the upcoming appointments and resignations for township boards and commissions. That will be obviously for your January meeting, but at least want to give them to you ahead of time so you know who is up for reappointment, who is seeking reappointment. And we do have one resignation, which will be Ed Linkle from the Zoning Hearing Board.
I did speak with Mr. Dreisbach. He is going to rejoin.
Okay.
So we can put him as a yes.
Okay. The only one that's, the one that there'll probably be some debate about is the Zoning Hearing Board. Obviously, what has happened in the past is that the alternate has moved over into that voting position. So technically, you'll have 3 appointments for the Zoning Hearing Board this year. Mr. Zone is up this year. You would then reappoint for Ed's position, which if it is Joan Gray, then you would appoint the remainder for Joan Gray's term, as it's outlined on this form for you tonight. So, but I believe Mr. Zezzi has provided those who are interested in reappointment and appointments to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Okay, and they all were included in your packets at that point. So, again, this is just for your consideration as you do your deliberations of who to appoint or reappoint to these positions moving forward. Item B under discussion is the zoning map amendment that's being requested by 450 South Trooper Road, which is Plaza Flowers. I'm going to ask Mr. Valio and Mr. Booz to kind of assist me in this process since he had met with them. But currently, that corner of Trooper and Egypt has 3 different zoning designations as part of it. The corner, which is where Green Drop is zoned commercial. The Plaza Flowers property to the middle of the property is zoned business professional. And then the property that fronts Trooper Road, where I believe there's a chiropractor facility and some other office spaces, is actually zoned R1. Previously, there was some damage that occurred on the property of the Plaza Flower side where a truck backed into one of the buildings and shifted it, and it's causing some questions about whether they're going to rebuild or things like that. But then the zoning issue came into place. In the letter that is being requested and that we have reviewed, the owner of Plaza Flowers is asking for the entire parcels, the 2 parcels that he owns, to be zoned commercial. That would then be contiguous with the zoning designation that's currently at the Green Drop property. So Mike and Al, if there's anything else you wanted to add to that, but.
No, I mean, I think you've covered all of it there. It would be the right thing to do to turn that whole corner into the commercial area. That would give him some flexibility with changing his sign on Trooper Road. And his plan is to move both of those parcels together as one. So he wants to relocate the garage a little bit further towards the Trooper Road side. And he has refrigeration in that garage for his flower business, so that would help him a lot. He came to the board, oh God, I don't know, quite a number of years ago for the same thing. And he was in the process of buying that other property on Trooper Road at that time, but has since bought it and owns it now. So I mean, we thought it was a good idea, but he had to come to the board to make the presentation to you folks.
So at this point, the process would be, if the board so wishes to move forward, would be a map amendment to the zoning map to allow to rezone those parcels, which he both owns, that would be contiguous to commercial that's currently zoned on the corner at the Green Drop property, which I believe is owned by Mrs. Jubb. The only reason we bring this up now for your consideration is that probably next month you'll be receiving the final ordinance recommendations from the Planning Commission on the West Main Street Corridor Study changes. As part of that, there's going to be some text changes and definitions added to the current zoning, but also a text amendment a map amendment to rezone that property to, I believe it would be Main Street. Take away the overlay.
I forget what exactly Naomi gave us,
Yeah.
MC something.
Yeah.
Main Street Commercial District.
Yeah, MCD, right.
The solicitor's office is currently reviewing that. We should hopefully have those comments back. It was submitted for Act 247 review, which it should pass since the county was the one who wrote the ordinance, but you never know. So this could be something that you could tackle at the same time for advertising purposes, doing one map amendment for the parcels in question. You'd obviously have to have a hearing and things that, coincide with, under the municipal planning code of what, these type of changes would require. But just from a cost perspective, these are some things that you could marry together if you so choose. Obviously, if you choose not to rezone the properties at Plaza Flowers, then this is a moot point, and we continue on with the commercial zoning changes for West Main Street. So, is there anything else you want to add to that? Okay. But at this point, the letter was just for your information. If you have any questions, obviously at a work session, we can bring in Mr. Drummond to do his formal presentation, but this is at least the letter in question to start that process.
Do you think that this would set any precedents for elsewhere in the township? And I'm just thinking of that storage facility, that, changing the zoning and whatnot, no, yeah.
I don't think it's gonna make a difference with that.
No, because I believe, at least with the zoning for the storage facility, they also were requiring a text amendment to change some of the zoning requirements. All this is doing is changing the map amendment. We're keeping the zoning the same.
Okay,
We're changing one parcel here. That there was changing.
I think 3 or 4, yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And ones that they did not own, but 2, they were requiring text amendment changes in addition to a map amendment change, whereas this property is just asking for contiguous zoning of current zoning ordinance rules. So that's the 2 items under discussion. Under manager's items, item A would be consider adopting ordinance number 2022-758, amending the drop eligibility. Again, this was duly advertised and up for your consideration this month. This is one of the housekeeping items that came with the approval of the ASME contract that was done last month. Item B would be consider adopting ordinance number 2022-759, amending the code to provide for biannual safety inspections. Again, this item was duly advertised and up for your consideration tonight and is based upon the discussion we had last month based upon the recommendation of Mr. Booz for this program. Item C would be consider adopting ordinance number 2022-760 with requiring the addition of fees to unpaid municipal claims for delinquent accounts. Again, this item was duly advertised as up for your consideration this month based upon the discussion at our work session and meetings in November. Item D would be consider adopting ordinance number 2022-761, adopting the 2023 budget. This is based upon the budget presentation of November. The ordinance was duly crafted based upon that. This ordinance, as we stated previously, does not raise taxes, fees, or sewer rates for the township for the 7th consecutive year. Item E is consider adopting Resolution 22-1692, which is the destruction of records. This is a yearly housekeeping item that is submitted to us by Kathy based upon the Records Retention Act of the state. The list of items that we are asking to dispose of are listed in that resolution, and most of them tend to be accounts payable and accounts receivable files that fall with outside of the 7-year retention period. So this is, again, just a housekeeping item because we are very limited in storage. Donna normally keeps the files she feels are relevant, but most of the ones are just standard copies of bills and invoices that we have paid during that year. Item F would be consider adopting Resolution 22-1693, which is designating the depositories of the township funds. This would be for fiscal year 2023, and this would be putting in place the current fiscal institutions of WISFIS and TD Bank as part of the township's banking operations. Item G would be consider adopting Resolution 22-1694, designating depositories of the township tax collector, and I believe this institutions are continuing. This would be TD Bank for the fiscal year 2023. Item H would be considering adopting Resolution 22-1695 of fixing the tax rate for 2023. Again, this resolution is a yearly housekeeping item, is setting the tax rate the same as it was last year. Again, no tax rate increase as part of this resolution. Item I and item J are new items for your consideration this month. Item I is consider adopting a Resolution 22-1696, which is an intergovernmental agreement for our recycling grant, which is the Chapter 904 Performance Recycling Grant through the Department of Environmental Protection at the state level. There are two things here for you. One was attached was the intergovernmental agreement, but also the resolution authorizing the intergovernmental agreement. And the reason for this is fairly simple. We use a third-party contractor, Huff Associates, that collects all of our recycling data from the commercial haulers and then residential haulers, and then compiles it as part of our grant application that's done on a yearly basis through the 904 Performance Grant Program. Normally, depending on the tonnages and the money available, that those grants range anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000, again, depending on tonnages. However, this year, Huff was able to look at recommending a consortium application between West Norriton Township, the Borough of Norristown, and the Borough of Conshohocken, as they are similar clients to Huff. And by doing so would increase our allocation by an additional $4,000. So it would take us to about $44,000 versus $40,000 for the year. But in order to do that, we would need an intergovernmental agreement with the other two municipalities. Fairly straightforward. It's a document that we saw from the Bucks County Consortium, who does this, which is a group of about 10 municipalities. But for our perspective, we're following Huff's recommendation of going in with Norristown and Conshohocken to improve our numbers, but it improves them for everyone. So all of us are going to see a significant increase in our allocation to this grant program. It's a yearly agreement that can be terminated within 30 days' notice by any one of the municipalities. But this is just a formal document we need to submit to DEP to allow them to process the grant on behalf of all three at once. So, is there anything else you want to add to that? Okay. So that's up for your consideration type. Since it is a resolution, there would be no need to advertise it, so you can adopt it this month so we can submit it as part of the grant application for December. And then item J would be consider approval of the agreement between the township and West Norriton Township Police Association. This is the culmination of the year-long negotiations for the next collective bargaining agreement. I did provide an update to the board in executive session on the terms of this agreement. It's a 5-year term, with very little changes in regards to the structure of the contract. We basically negotiated pension and salaries as part of this. So at this point, I'm asking your approval to execute this agreement based upon the terms as we had presented to you. And that concludes the agenda.
Thank you, Jason. Commissioner Liaison Committee reports. So I attended the Planning Commission meeting on November 21st. And at that meeting was when we discussed the board approved the Main Street Commercial District zoning guidelines, which Jason mentioned earlier. And starting in January, the Planning Commission is going to begin to update the West Norriton Township Comprehensive Plan. I believe we're pretty past due on this. Usually we redo these every 10 years. Comprehensive Plan is a document prepared for the community which establishes an overall plan and recommends actions relevant to the current and future needs of the area. And these things include future land use, housing, transportation, community facilities and utilities, natural and historic resources, energy conservation, economic development and social impacts, and compatibility with neighboring municipality plans, and implementation of strategies. Yeah.
Which is funny, we just recently received Laura Providence's draft because they are working on their comprehensive plan this year, so their final draft has come out. So we actually have that, because of the compatibility, we have to review that, so.
Would this be sort of in line with the county's long-term plan?
Yeah, they're starting theirs up too.
Well,
Yeah, there's components that you can add. You can add components from the 20, I think it's gonna be 2050 plan that they're working on, or 2060. Their hazard mitigation plan that's currently being updated. They have an energy plan that's coming out now. So it's as robust of a document as you want to make it.
And what about involving other, like the EAC perhaps? And
Yeah, I mean, I think just the way the process is, it's so, at that infant stage where you can grow the committee if you want to add other people. But I believe Naomi in January is going to at least outline the process for the board. But obviously the EAC could have input on green technology. Because the one thing I would like to recommend during this process is we do have a rating through the PA Sustainable Communities. We're a silver community. However, if we look at changes for building codes and, ways for development, we could increase that rating as part of that. So there are some things that we could add as part of that under energy and, open space and things like that.
Well, thank you. It was evident the other night of the hard work of the Recreation Committee with the tree lighting. They had a wonderful event, and they meet and discuss and just keep coming up with more ideas every time we turn around.
The HRC is planning to have showings of movies, maybe in cooperation with the Pastor Dwayne's church, the UCC Church, Dwayne Mosier, and then having discussions and topics, I guess, related to diversity and marginalized communities. So we're looking at that for next year. When I say we, I should say they, the HRC. This month's meeting is on the 15th. It's not on its usual date. And that's all I have.
The EAC met last month and kind of wrapped the discussion on the plastic bag ordinance we passed last month, and they're looking forward to projects in the spring. And I noticed on here the meeting is January. I believe it's not going to be until February. But please double check me.
Okay, we will.
But I seem to remember Donna saying February. I just don't want anyone to get turned around on it.
One item that I would like to discuss with the EAC, with the institution of the plastic bag ordinance, we need to work on marketing material and letters that need to go out to the businesses ahead of the implementation, because I believe we had in the ordinance that it goes into effect on Earth Day 2023. So unfortunately, that's going to creep up on us rather fast. We did find some documents that were, I believe, West Goshen Township put together that seemed to be fairly graphic in nature, not text-driven. So I'd at least like to get some feedback on those so we can start working on that process.
We'll meet with Donna tomorrow to discuss this, and I'll mention that to them and make sure that they get to work on that beforehand. And that concludes it for me.
Public comment. Mr. Waters?
Jim Waters, number 1 East Indian Lane. Happy holidays, everybody. The golf club, groundbreaking. It was a milestone, I think, for West Norriton Township. And I told Peter that he looked really proud when he was up there at the microphone. But I know.
I think we all should be proud. What can I say? We're moving forward, and it feels really good. We could have done less wind, but, what can I say? It also looks like there's some stormwater controls being implemented in there.
Yeah, as the requirement under the pre-construction is the installation, the basins are going to be permanent, but the basins have to be put in ahead of construction, so, yep.
Yeah. But, I mean, there is going to be less coming down towards me, right?
Yes.
Okay. There is some problems with the golf club there on School Lane. There's a little bit of damage to that waterway there. I took a few pictures. I'm putting together a little book. The basin there on School Lane doesn't hold any water, And the other one behind the strip stores there, across from the Volvo dealer, that's not holding any water neither. I rode around on the other side of Marshall Street in the development there, and there's nothing there where you can do anything to slow it down. The only other thing there is something more restrictive in Centennial Park. But I'm kind of trying to do like a picture thing so that, you know, we can move forward on it. Tree lighting was nice because I had less rain, but it's still good to see everybody together there. And did you say that the next meeting was December 15th?
For the HRC, for the Human Relations Committee.
The academy?
No, the academy is canceled for December.
Oh, okay.
Something came up and it's moved to January.
All right, cool. I see that the sheriff is getting beat up with phone scams. And it was an interesting discussions back before they broke up the Bell system of what was going to happen, and this pretty much proved out. And you know, the only way I can vent my frustrations is create like a documentary video and put it up on YouTube and feel that I did my part. And I've been putting together a collection of the voicemails that they left to give examples of some of the type of scams that are putting out there. And I just haven't had time to put it together. But, I mean, I've even gotten scams from New York City court people. And what I do is I call them back to see whether no numbers exist or find out whether they're actually businesses that are being disrupted. So there's a lot of, you know, problems that it's creating for a lot of businesses out there because of this. But I'd love to put together a documentary that would help people avoid being ripped off by that. All right. Go plastic bag.
All right, thank you. Could I get a motion to close public comment? So moved. Second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
All right, under meeting dates, before we get to that, just want to remind our residents and the board that on December 1st, the new legislative maps for the township went into effect, so our elected officials have changed. We are now in the 14th senatorial district being represented by, 17th senatorial district being represented by Senator Amanda Capoletti. We are in the 70th House District, which is now represented by Representative Matt Bradford, and two precincts, 3-1 and 3-2, are still part of the 149th, being represented by 150th. I'll get the numbers right one of these days, being represented by Joe Webster. So that information has changed and been updated on the website, but I'm sure there's going to be some confusion overlap in the next couple of weeks just until everyone figures that out. Under meeting dates, we will check with the EAC, but if not, they will be tentatively meeting for January 4th, but it sounds like that meeting will be moved to February. Recreation does not have a meeting for the month of December. Planning Commission is not meeting for the month of December. There is no zoning hearing board for the month of December. The HRC is scheduled to meet on December 15th at 7 p.m. in this room, and then there is no academy for the month of December.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second? All in favor? Aye.